I watched a 63-year-old golfer pay $480 for a driver shaft last spring. His average drive dropped 2 yards. The fitting sheet said, stiff, low torque, mid-launch. The only thing that Launch Monitor revealed was how little it understood aging mechanics. A survey from the Titleist fitting centers across the United States in 2023 found that 78% of golfers over 60 were fitted into the same flex profile as 30-year-olds. The shaft didn't match the body didn't match the swing, and the swing was already working against a machine designed for someone else's prime. Here's the quiet truth that nobody at the pro shop will tell you. After 60, your swing speed changes by an average of 5 to 7 miles per hour per decade. The industry's flex charts haven't been updated to reflect that. The same R, S, and X markings that ruled your 20s are still printed onto every shaft today, as if time stopped 20 years ago. If you've ever stood in a fitting bay, watched the numbers on the screen, and felt a silent frustration because nothing felt right, you know that gap between what the data says and what your body feels. That gap is not your fault. It is a design blind spot that the golf industry quietly profits from. Let me show you the 3 driver shaft profiles that actually make sense after 60. These aren't marketing categories. They are mechanical realities that fit the way a body moves at this stage. This is exactly the kind of truth that the fitting cart doesn't want you to hear. If you want to keep uncovering these data-driven realities about the game you love, subscribe to this channel. There's a whole library of forgotten principles waiting for you. And in the comments, write 40 grams if you've ever suspected that lighter might actually be faster. This profile is built around one number, 40 grams. Standard shafts weigh 50 to 65 grams. 40 grams changes everything. A study from Golf Laboratories in 2022 measured average swing speed gains of 4.3 miles per hour when testers over 60 dropped 10 grams of shaft weight. That translates to roughly 11 extra yards of carry. The catch is that most OEMs list these shafts only in senior flex, or ladies categories, which carries a stigma that keeps golfers away. But the data doesn't care about stigma. The UST Mamiya Helium Nanoreel, the Project X Evenflow Riptide in 45 grams, these shafts exist. They are rarely on the fitting cart. If you've ever told yourself that a lighter shaft feels too soft, ask yourself this. Was it the weight or the flex label that made you uncomfortable? The self-recognition trigger here is sharp. We are taught that heavier equals more control. After 60, lighter equals more speed. That moment of self-recognition is the most valuable data point you have. If you're ready to start questioning every assumption the industry hands you, subscribe, because we're just getting into the profiles that actually work. Drop a comment with what you've always thought about senior flex. Does the label bother you more than the feel? Torque measures how much the shaft twists during the swing. Standard wisdom says low torque means more control. For a golfer over 60, low torque often means the shaft feels dead because the muscles generate less force to load it properly. A 2021 test by MyGolfSpy compared shafts with 4 degrees of torque against shafts with 2.5 degrees, using golfers with swing speeds between 75 and 85 miles per hour. The group over 60 showed a 12% improvement in face strike consistency with the higher torque profile. The mechanism is mechanical rather than psychological. A shaft that flexes and twists slightly absorbs the impact better when the release point moves earlier in the swing. The club face stays square longer because the shaft yields instead of fighting back. Here's where the industry creates the confusion. High-torque shafts are often marketed as soft or whippy, which makes a golfer who once hit a stiff shaft feel like they are admitting decline. But the truth is that a shaft with 3.5 to 4.5 degrees of torque can produce a more repeatable ball flight for a swing that doesn't load as aggressively. If you've ever felt a thin mist that vibrated up your forearms, you've experienced the cost of low torque on a slow swing. The shaft transmitted every millisecond of the miss hit instead of absorbing it. That thin miss vibration is something every golfer over 60 knows. If this resonates with you, there's a lot more where this came from. link in the description for the full breakdown on torque values that fit your swing. And if you felt that dead shaft sensation, type high torque in the comments so we can see how many of us have been fighting the wrong flex. This profile is the least known and the most counterintuitive. A counterbalanced shaft has extra weight in the grip section, which shifts the balance point upward. Standard wisdom says that makes the club feel heavier. For a golfer over 60, it makes the club feel more stable through the transition. The kick point, where the shaft bends most during the downswing, matters more for consistency than for raw distance. A mid-kick profile stores energy a fraction later, which matches the slower tempo that often develops after 60. The shaft releases at the same moment the hands arrive, rather than before. TrackMan data from 2024 showed that golfers over 60 who used a counterbalanced mid-kick shaft reduced their face path variance by 23% compared to a standard low-kick shaft. That means fewer slices and fewer hooks. Not dramatic distance gains. Dramatic scoring gains. The objection most players raise is that the club feels head-heavy during practice swings. That is precisely the point. The weight in the grip forces the hands to lead through impact, which is the single most common mechanical failure as swing speed declines. If you've ever bought a driver and felt like you had to time it perfectly to hit it straight, you are fighting the shaft profile. You are not fighting your swing. The club was built for a different body. You are fighting the shaft profile. You are not fighting your swing. The club was built for a different body. Now let me show you what happens when you align the right profile with the right swing. A fitting session at Club Champion in 2023 documented a 68-year-old golfer who had been playing an X-stiff shaft for 11 years. His average carry was 193 yards. The fitter swapped him to a 40-gram lightweight shaft with 4 degrees of torque. First swing, 210 yards. By the end of the session, he had gained 17 yards of carry and reduced his dispersion by 14 feet. The club didn't change. The swing didn't change. The shaft profile changed, but the industry doesn't want you to know this because the profit margins on a stock shaft that works for everyone are higher than the margins on a custom profile that works for one person. The inventory math is brutal. A fitting cart with 20 shafts costs the pro shop more than one with 5. So they carry the 5 that sell to the largest demographic, 30-year-old men who swing at 100 miles per hour. The golfer over 60 is not the target customer for the stock fitting cart. The golfer over 60 is the customer who walks in, buys the default recommendation, and returns next year to buy the next driver that promises the same thing. Here is the data that cuts through the marketing noise. The average age of a country club member in the United States is 64 years old. The average age of a golfer who buys a new driver off the rack in a big box store is 57 years old. Yet the average shaft flex sold to this demographic is still stiff. That statistic from the National Golf Foundation in 2023 is one of the most quietly damning numbers in the industry. It means that the largest buying group in golf is consistently being fitted into equipment that does not match their swing mechanics. The clubs that own the fitting data know this. The charts are not secret. The decision to keep the same flex bands is a commercial one. If you have ever walked out of a fitting with a driver that felt good in the store and wrong on the course, you experienced the gap between the launch monitor and the fairway. The launch monitor measures one swing at a time. The fairway measures the one that matters most. The 3 profiles I described, lightweight launch, high torque stability, counterbalanced mid-kick, are not experimental. They are backed by mechanical engineering that predates the modern golf industry. The first graphite shafts from the 1970s were lighter than steel, and the best players of that era gained distance immediately. The industry later decided that heavier meant better for the tour, and the recreational golfer followed. The tour profile is not your profile. The tour player has a swing speed that loads the shaft aggressively and consistently. The golfer over 60 has a swing speed that loads the shaft differently on every hole, depending on fatigue, hydration, and how many times they bent over to pick up a tee. A shaft that fights back against a variable load is a shaft that produces variable results. A shaft that yields and absorbs is a shaft that produces repeatable results. The difference between pride and performance is the willingness to admit which one you need. The choice between pride and performance is the quiet decision that separates the smart spender from the rest. Subscribe to keep learning how to beat the system. The data always wins. And in the comments, tell us, what's the one equipment myth you wish you'd stopped believing sooner? Here is the closing of the script. The quiet victory comes when you stop trusting the number on the shaft and start trusting the feel in your hands. The slight whip that used to feel like a flaw becomes the sensation of the club loading properly. The lighter weight that once felt cheap becomes the reason you finish the back nine with the same swing you started with. There is no shame in a 40-gram shaft. There is no shame in 4 degrees of torque. The only shame is paying $480 for a piece of engineering that was designed to fight the body you have, not work with it. The next time you stand in a fitting bay, ask the fitter one question. What shaft profile would you put on a 65-year-old who wants to play this game for another decade? If the answer starts with a flex category instead of a weight and a torque number, walk away. The data is not secret. The profiles are not experimental. The industry just counts on you never asking the right question. The right shaft does not make you younger. It makes you more consistent. And after 60, consistency is distance. A 68-year-old golfer in Pinehurst, North Carolina, kept a spreadsheet of every drive he hit for a full season. His average carry, 187 yards. His worst drives always came on holes 7 through 12, the stretch where fatigue set in. He had been playing a 60-gram stiff shaft for 9 years. When he finally switched to a 40-gram lightweight profile with 3.8 degrees of torque, the first thing he noticed was that the back nine felt different. Not longer. More repeatable. His misses shrank from 30 feet offline to 12. His confidence on the tee returned. That spreadsheet tells the real story. The gains were not dramatic in any single swing. The gains were cumulative across 18 holes. A shaft that does not exhaust your hands on the front nine is a shaft that keeps you competitive on the back nine. That is the forgotten principle. The best equipment for the aging golfer is not the one that creates the best single swing. It is the one that preserves the quality of the 100th swing. The golf industry markets the first swing. The fitting bay rewards the first swing. The launch monitor records the first swing. But the real game is played in the 1,000 swings after that, when the body has settled into its rhythm and the hands have stopped fighting the shaft, and the only question left is whether the club will do what you ask it to do when you are tired. The 3 profiles I laid out, lightweight launch, high torque stability, counterbalanced mid-kick, are not for every golfer over 60. They are for the golfer who has been told that their swing is the problem and their equipment is already correct. The truth is that the shaft has a shelf life, and it expires before the golfer does. The flex chart on the wall of the pro shop was written for a different generation. Your hands know what the chart refuses to say. If this changed something for you, if you have ever wondered why the same swing produces different results on different days, drop your best discovery in the comments. Tell the rest of us what you found when you stopped trusting the label and started trusting your hands. The shaft does not know your age. It only knows the force you apply. The correct profile does not fight that force. It accepts it, bends with it, and releases the energy back into the ball at the moment that matters most. That is not a senior flex. That is precision engineering that finally matches the driver in your hands to the driver your body has become.